Welcome to the Changemakers podcast, brought to you by Graf-Martin Integrated Marketing Solutions for Good. This season, we're focusing on what nonprofit leadership looks like in this next normal. I'm your host, Ellen Graf-Martin, and each episode, you'll get to join me in conversation with some of my friends and peers in the Canadian nonprofit space who are changemakers and groundbreakers across Canada and beyond. Let's jump in. I get to chat with Shawn Plummer today, and not just that I get to chat with him, but you get to listen in as I connect with Shawn Plummer of Food for the Hungry. And I'll tell you, Shawn and I met last December, long before anyone had ever heard the word COVID in Canada, or that we ever thought that 2020 was going to look this way. And so I feel like that was about 8 years ago, but I was jazzed by what I got to know about him when we met for breakfast at an ABC restaurant in Abbotsford, BC. So welcome to the podcast, Shawn. So excited that you're here.
Thank you, Ellen. It's great to be here.
So, okay, tell us who you are, what you do, and why you love it.
So I'm a Chilliwack, BC boy, actually, born and raised. Went to school here, went to Trinity Western University, and after Trinity, I decided it was time to do more overseas. I'd actually gone to Cape and Ray in Europe right out of high school. Fell in love with international travel. Ended up hitchhiking down and then taking a boat over to Israel and traveling Egypt and just falling in love with that part of the world. Came back, got a business degree, and then I was like, now what the heck am I going to do? So I did what others did and went to Korea, taught English for a couple of years. And then I felt called, you know what, maybe I'm supposed to be a high school teacher, business education. That sounds good. So I came back and got a job actually after doing my PDP at UBC. And then 8 weeks into my teaching career, Samaritan's Purse called and said, you know, how would you like to go to Mozambique and help respond to some devastating floods in that part of that world? And I went and took a 6-month contract and fell in love with the work, and no turning back. 20 years later, this is sort of the path that I've been following ever since. So I'm grateful to have married a woman who actually came with me to Mozambique and then up to Eritrea. So we spent 4 years together in Africa, and then 5 years working for their head office in North Carolina. And that sort of set me on this path of international work and something that's just I've been called to do.
And when did you land at Food for the Hungry?
I landed at Food for the Hungry early 2010. We felt called to come back home and joined FH and did a role in partnership development, so partnering with businesses and churches and artists to grow our child sponsorship program. And just FH really, my whole focus with Samaritan's Purse had really been on the relief and emergency side. FH is just all about sustainable development. So I had a lot to learn in that world, and then became CEO 3 years ago. So it's been another 10 years with SP, now 10 years with FH. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess it only took 6 months to fall in love with the work and work with the most vulnerable and just assist people that were in desperate need. I feel like I'm now, you ask about being, you know, what motivates me, I guess it's now like the best of both worlds. I feel like I get to be home in Canada. I get to engage with Canadians that want to see communities change and thrive. And then I also get to support our staff that are working on the front lines in developing countries around the world. And that just gives me energy every morning to get up and do the work. And they continue. It's really our staff in the field that just inspire me to do what we do here in Canada, even though it's a challenging job. But ultimately they do the hardest work on the ground. And so that always that has the fire in me to keep me motivated every day.
So you mentioned coming home, but I'm assuming that in the past, this has also meant a lot of travel. I know when we got together in December, you had just come back from a trip like the night before, and then 2020 So how has your work how has your work changed? I've heard a lot of people, like when Carrie Newhoff even said, I don't have to travel anymore. This is glorious. Do you kind of feel the same way, or is it how are you connecting still with the field?
It's been really hard. It's I think like most charities in Canada, everything changed, I guess, when March happened. So I last did a trip into Guatemala in January, and then we were supposed to go with our board to Bangladesh in February, and a week before that, all the COVID mayhem was happening in Hong Kong. We were supposed to be flying through Hong Kong to go to Bangladesh. We ended up pulling the plug on that trip, and then reality set in. So, yeah, whatever that date was, the middle of March, we all know it. I think Disneyland closed, and we went, "Oh my goodness, this is real."
Yeah.
And overnight, all of our public engagement events, artist concerts, team trips, done. Uh, and then we had to adapt. We're a pretty small team of 20, so we kind of quickly went to a hybrid model. A few staff could work out of our office, and the others, we all went home. I went into my, my wife called it the bunker in our basement. And, I was pulling 10, 12-hour days and trying to figure out what that new reality was. Huge shift for us on this end. Then we're, regular communication with our fields who are having to pivot and change the way they do things, and quickly, basically 100% of the work they were doing all of a sudden was adjusting. Now, every country is very different. We work in, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So each country, very different context. But, they had to pivot to, PPEs and making sure, and a work from home situation for their staff as well on the ground. And then working with our community leaders and our partner communities of what's the most effective way that we can support them to get through. COVID seemed to hit us before it actually hit a lot of our fields, but they knew what was coming. The wave was coming. So it was more of being flexible and adaptable as we were being here in Canada. We also had to do the same with our fields and how we support them with our funding, and kind of pivot that to make sure that, they had flexible funding to meet the greatest needs at that time. So hey, our work is relational. That is one of our core values. And we have the trust with our community leaders. So our fields had to adapt very quickly to, all of a sudden they were cut off from accessing a lot of the remote communities that we partner with. And they were doing, trainings over WhatsApp and cell phones. And so everyone had to adapt and adjust. But the beauty of walking with and partnering with communities for at least 10 years, we've got deep relationships. So we were able to keep programs going, whether it's agriculture, health, sanitation, hygiene practices, keep the focus on supporting those communities as best we could. So major adjustments for all of us.
Yeah, major adjustments. And, it makes me think, so in international development, what you do is crisis support in a crisis. So you guys are kind of made for this. So one of my questions is, so what next? So yeah, the crisis hits. For Canada, I think a lot of us have kind of forgotten that there is a crisis. We went into crisis mode in March, April. Like, I think I've totally I don't know that I lived through April and May because I don't remember them.
I know.
Total amnesia. But it was that crisis. Like, it's that fight or flight or freeze, right? But what happens next? And are the people that you work with globally still in crisis? Or are you in the what's next phase of that crisis?
It's still really both. We're in a situation where you're probably aware of the largest refugee camp in Bangladesh with the Rohingya. And there's anywhere from 800,000 to 1 million people. And, FH, we partner with Medical Teams International and providing primary health care. And the UN asked us to greatly amplify our work, and we were already reaching about 100,000 through 4 primary healthcare posts. But then it was, hey, can you guys now build a care center and a treatment center for what we know is coming with COVID? So that's one example of kind of, crisis that our staff in Bangladesh were already amongst it, but then even had to greatly increase their reach when it was already super challenging to keep the staff working where they weren't starting to feel safe. Plus then we were, adding a treatment center and having to do a bunch of hiring. So just, it's extremely complicated, just as we know. Poverty is complicated. COVID does make it worse. So yeah, as I mentioned earlier, 100% of our field operations have pivoted to actively prevent the spread of this disease. So, and provide life-saving interventions and empower communities as best we can to thrive in the face of these economic uncertainties. So it's the challenge of, I guess, pivoting to more on the relief side, but we don't want to lose momentum on all the good work that's been done on the, on the sustainable community development side either. So it's finding that right balance, making sure our fields and our staff on the ground feel supported, make sure they have the funding available to ramp up their programs and scale to not only reach and work in communities that are already working, but in many cases we're being asked to expand and grow that operation. So, and it's forced us to even do more. We're fortunate, we're already a part of some alliances. We know we can't do this work together, and that's certainly the future. So we're a part of these great alliances where we're collaborating, we're working together, we're sharing. Whoever is the strongest on the ground takes the lead. Others come in and contribute as they can. And we've been fortunate to have a donor base and a partner base in Canada that has been faithful through it and are walking with us, and unbelievable response through the spring just continues to blow away us, the generosity that we're seeing from people. We were all scared at the end of March, planning with our board, what is this going to look like, and trying to do our projections for the next 3 to 6 months. And we've been very fortunate. God has blessed our organization the last 5 months. So we don't know what's coming, but that's kind of where we're at right now.
I think it was Stacy Campbell that I was speaking to. It was like, it's not a 5-year plan. It's not even a 1-year plan anymore. It's like a 3-month plan and another 3-month plan. Yeah. Because I'm ready, as the meme says, I'm ready for some precedented times. I'm really tired of unprecedented. Are you finding the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. Talking to the planning, we kind of have a fixed 3-year strategic plan. Well, that's out the door. We're going to, it's quarterly, it's rolling. It's thankfully our board has adjusted and adapted along with us. And, we've just gone through our budgeting season for the next fiscal year, and to try to figure out the assumptions that we're trying to make for the coming year really is impossible. So it's let's do our best plan and let's adjust along the way. And thankfully we have the support to do it.
What would you say to a board that isn't sure what to do right now? If you've got a good board, tell us how a board can support a leader.
We have a board that's really just a governance board. And so they really give the freedom to myself and our senior leadership team. And they're a listening ear, they're encouraging. And we've got a board chair that's really shaped this board and the direction we've taken. We've got amazing leaders, and they kind of say, "Hey, you guys know the work. You're collaborating with your fields. You're collaborating with partners across Canada. We practice open book management, so our eyes are on cash, and we've got good management practices that the whole team participates in. So we're really monitoring things along the way, and we're grateful that they're not hands in, they're hands out. And so to other boards and other leaders, I guess I would just encourage that. A lot of the practices, I'm fortunate to step in. Past CEO got a lot of things in place that we've now, we're 7-8 years practicing that have just been really healthy rhythms and habits for our organization that we've been able to keep going. So we've been digital for years. We were just set up for to respond to what COVID brought, even though we were scared. You didn't know what was coming around the corner. Our team's been able to adapt and adjust really quickly. So we're fortunate for that. And yeah, grateful for our board that's just really walked with us. We kind of stepped into the monthly board meetings, April through July. That was really helpful just to make sure, hey, we got a sounding board and make sure that we were making the right decisions and calls along the way. And they've just been fully encouraging and supportive. So I've been very grateful for that.
Yes. Well, and I think one of the things you said there that you may not have even noticed is that you said we were scared. And I think every single nonprofit in the country was probably scared. If they were sane, they were a little bit scared. But I don't know if anybody felt safe to say that. So having a board that lets you feel safe to say, I have no idea what's happening, because this has been a scary year. 2020, if nothing else, has been scary.
Yeah, I'll admit it. I can put a strong face on. I think if we had been devastated financially as well, it would have been way worse. And hey, I've been a part of all the surveys across the country. I know it has been devastating for a number of charities, and we don't know what's coming. Like I said, it's hard to project what calendar year end is going to bring and things. But yeah, I think, our staff, like I said, we're small, we're nimble. There's only 20 of us. Everyone work from home, and we've kind of left, I'm not making any hard policies or how things are going to go down the road. We don't even know what back to school looks like. So we've just tried as a team to say, look, we are going to roll with this based on your context and your situation, based on where you're at with kids going to school, whether it's going to be hybrid. We don't know what the fall is going to bring. So we've just kind of had to say, Lord, hey, take our fears away. We're grateful again to our donor base that seems to have the same attitude of going, we know you need the support. We know what the developing world is experiencing and crises around the world. We're going to be there for you. And that obviously gives us a lot of ease kind of moving forward. So.
Well, and there's a lot of, I guess we really understand our shared humanity when everyone can say, I have no control over my own life right now because I don't even know. I have been bombed a lot of times by my 7-year-old in a meeting that it would have been humiliating a year ago. And now it's just like, it is the way it's going to go.
The way it's going to go. And, one cool thing is, like I said, within a week in March, all of a sudden, all public engagement across Canada, team trips, all these things that we put so much value in, they were gone overnight. The amazing thing was, I think by mid-May, I remember having a meeting with our philanthropy team, going around the circle on Zoom, and people sharing story after encouraging story of going, there was a number of these major donors and others that, frankly, in the past, we're just happy writing a check, and we had a hard time reaching and having a conversation, really, deepening relationship. And we value relationships. That is one of our core values. So it was amazing that it didn't matter who I reached out to. I went from a very quick response, which was typical because people are extremely busy, to absolutely, I'd love to meet you on Zoom for a half an hour. And so our engagement with donors and business and church partners and stuff shot through the roof through the spring. And nothing could have been more encouraging through that time. Just know that we're just having these types of conversations with people, knowing, hey, they're real. They're going through the same thing. To adjust with their kids and families, and trips have gone away and they're stuck at home, and we were all in this together. And then we started doing these virtual calls with our fields and inviting partners to participate in those. And so it's been a really, we've found innovative and creative ways to engage people, and that's been really exciting for us.
And it's funny that some of the innovative ways that we are using now aren't that innovative. Like Zoom existed before COVID.
That's true.
So, like we could have actually been doing this, but for some reason there was like a brain block in the how we do things. Is there anything else that you're seeing where it's like, oh, we could have done that before, but we just never did?
Up to February, we started looking at the way we're scaling and growing, we're gonna have to be in we got to find new office space in a year and a half. And all of a sudden, with the new reality of Zoom and our moving our morning huddles where all of our staff jump online, that was all going so well, we realized we don't need to. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
the new way, and we should have seen this. You're right. We should have seen some of these things coming and maybe done better forecasting. But yeah, I think we just took a new attitude on the way our work, our business, the way we engage and communicate with our fields. It can be done more efficiently. We can save money in a lot of places. We just need a common meeting place now, I think, going forward, where we all connect maybe a couple days out of the week, but the rest, uh,
Mm-hmm.
we can. I've learned this has been an incredible pilot project we've been afforded, I think, to know that we can trust staff to adapt. It's not that working from home means less productive. It
Mm-hmm.
just means your hours may be a little different, but people have found a new way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been really healthy for me, especially in a new leadership role over the last couple of years. I had a lot of assumptions too that I wasn't sure of, and it's been neat being able to try these things over the last few months. So that's been encouraging.
That's good. That's good. So I don't know if you remember this, but when we talked in December, one of the things that we talked about was the model of international development and food for the hungry and the 10-year model. So you work with the community for 10 years, I believe. Please correct everything I say that's wrong. You work with the community for 10 years, and that should be the length of the development project. However, all this is changing. And at the time we were talking about it changing because of climate change and how you work with a community for 10 years or for 8 years. And you're like, we are almost done. We've done our job. And then an earthquake hits or a hurricane or a typhoon or a drought. And so, or COVID. So
Or
now how does this change? Like, I'm assuming you're seeing this even more now. And so how do we change our thinking on even philanthropy around a project having an end date?
Yeah, I think it's important to still go in. The exit strategy is very important. I think it's right from the start. It's how we build relationship and how we build trust. And when I say we, I'm talking our national staff in these countries, um, that have that conversation with community leaders. So, they have those conversations at the government level of where are the most vulnerable pockets in each of these countries that we work in. And then it's, once it's all agreed with government and then community, people that are motivated to change and they know where they want to be in 10 to 15 years. Those are really a great fit for Food for the Hungry. We can come alongside, we walk with them, but it's still following that healthy poverty alleviation model of it is community driven. It's not donor driven. It's community driven. It's community led. And it's that local asset development, having the awareness of the assets that they already have within their community. And then wherever those gaps are, that's where a Food for the Hungry Canada can come alongside. And then we connect partners in Canada to financially contribute and build relationship. And then there's that beautiful mutual transformation piece that comes together. So we don't want to lose that. It's funny in conversations with some of our African staff, they're like, COVID, like there's 30 other things on our list we're already dealing with. COVID is just another one. And you know what? That's kind of the reality. Our staff in Burundi, they face so much. They've faced war. They have serious malaria outbreaks and all these, tropical diseases and strife and climate change, environment. So there's all these issues they're already dealing with, and so it's just another thing on the list for them. So they kind of bring things back to reality for us when we're in a panic.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, keep the eyes on the goal. And so really that's what we're doing together. It's still, our goal is 10 years. And we're monitoring and evaluating along the way with our staff and community. And yeah, if we're behind in a certain area, whether it's health or education or livelihoods, leadership development, we know that's an area where we have to put extra emphasis or investment. And so that's a monitoring process that we go through. And if there is, an earthquake or a serious COVID impact and it sets you back a year or two, that's fine. We adjust our goals along the way, and maybe it pushes out then to 11 or 12 years, and we all agree. But it's still important to have the end goal. And we know that when we all get to that place together, we will graduate them and celebrate together. And then FH moves on, and we exit, we move on to other neighboring communities that are also motivated to change. So the model is there. The timeline may adjust based on reality on the field level. I think you mentioned philanthropy, and I think that's one conversation we've gotten better at over the years where, in the past, I'm sure we've all done it. We go to a donor or someone we think is a major donor and we ask them to write a check to support a program. That's not what it's about. It's not about extraction. It's about building relationship. It's facilitating these relationships. We're all, experience poverty in some way here in Canada or overseas. And so we encourage people to walk with a community for multiple years in relationship. If they want to contribute financially, fantastic. There's many ways that they can do that. But we're trying to get away from this kind of one-time gift to, would you consider a multi-year walking with model? And get involved in multiple ways, whether it's just being a prayer partner or going and experience and building relationship on the ground, or financially supporting. Everyone can contribute and be a part of it. So
it's so good. It's good. Yeah. And I think moving from that transactional giving to real philanthropy, where you really are involved in investing in other people, it's a huge shift. Are you a nonprofit leader passionate about your organization's mission but unsure how to communicate it effectively? Do you wish your communications budget went further, that your development and communications teams worked better together, or that you had a stronger plan to find new supporters? At Graf-Martin Integrated Marketing Solutions for Good, we get it. With you in mind, we've custom-built solutions for nonprofit organizations to make your message have more impact, reach further, and connect with the right people for years to come. Schedule your free consultation by emailing solutions@grafmartin.com. Again, that's solutions@grafmartin.com. Another question I had was around your collaboration. So you talked about the on-the-ground collaboration, whoever's stronger can do this. And we hear often that collaboration happens overseas often, and Canadian donors have no idea that this is actually happening. But that often in Canada, we don't see collaboration happening. However, this summer you had a collaboration with World Vision, Compassion. So things are changing. So maybe tell us a little bit about why I guess we know we need to collaborate in Canada, but maybe more about your perspective about why and how we do this in a competitive environment.
I've seen, so this is my 20th year, and I'll admit my early years in the field in Africa, it was competitive. We were fighting for grants, you were fighting for opportunities. We ran as solo organizations, and it was rare to collaborate. Then government funding started forcing people you had to come together in a consortium with other organizations in Africa, Asia, or Latin America to get grant funding, and that started a movement. Here in Canada, so now we've been back for 10 years, I've noticed a huge shift the last 4 to 5 years. The conversations we've been having, and I'll specifically mention, we're a part of the CCRDA, the Canadian Christian Relief and Development, or Canadian Relief and Development Association. They moved their annual meeting in May to virtual, and there was 60 of us organizations in the room together, And I've been going to these CCRDA meetings for 10 years. This was the most encouraging meeting I'd ever been a part of, when we thought it was going to be super challenging because it was virtual.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the author, Laura had the author for that book. I think it's Rooting for Rivals.
Great book. Yeah.
Great book. And we just had the most interesting conversation. And out of that, I've had at least half a dozen conversations with other, Christian organizations in Canada, talking about ways that we can work together here in Canada, internationally. Where do we have program alignment? How can we come together? So it's just this new, and it's just this kingdom-minded approach that I know it's always been there, but it didn't seem, at least I wasn't a part of those conversations. But I heard it from a number of leaders that there just seems to be this new way, even before COVID, but COVID sort of amplified this. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, for years, we've been partnering with World Vision and others in large grants in a number of countries and to have the greatest impact. But we haven't found that way in Canada in the past. So yeah, super excited to come together with World Vision and Compassion and this benefit concert. And then, like I said, having a number of these other conversations, and I know other leaders are too. So, and it's not just looking for funding opportunities. It's program impact. We're looking at countries where we're already operational, where we would be stronger together. So that is, it's new and it's exciting. I think Canadians expect it. And I really hope that's one thing we can push forward. And that's one of the encouragements I have for other leaders as well. Just, we get stuck. Essentially you're running a business. You're super busy, but we can't go at this alone. And, I've read a few articles during COVID, I'm trying to remember the name of one right now, but in the end, it's basically, we either need to transform the way we do things or die well, which means there's going to be a merger or an acquisition happening. And I guarantee you it's coming in our sector pretty soon, if not already, or you're going to die badly. Those are kind of the three options going forward. And I think we got to transform together, and we got to come together as a community.
So if there's a leader saying, I want to collaborate, but I have no idea how to do this because we have competed for the same donor dollars for years, I'm afraid, like using that I'm afraid model, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose more than I will gain. What would you say to them?
I would say that's an old mentality. I don't, we have this scarcity mentality because of funding. We've got to have that abundance mentality going forward. You have to have the faith-based or not, you have to have the abundance mentality going forward. There's enough resources out there for all of us, but we have to be smarter in the way we do things. And everything you read and you kind of look at the trends. There's a lot of charities in Canada and America and other places where it's not going to look the same in 5 years. I'm telling you that. It's times are changing. So we have to have our head up and be open to, looking at healthy alliances that we can be participating in. Unless you're the biggest in the world, and even then, I think it's just smart to, funding levels have been going down percentage-wise for a number of years. And so I think that's just the right business decision moving forward. And Christ calls us to do things together, not solo. So we need to come around each other and support one another. And then I think collectively we'll grow together. So I guess that's what I would say.
Well, and I would say, especially for faith-based charities, we are supposed to be one body or one family, and that's pretty clear. But we haven't necessarily operated. It's easier to say that about the church than about ministries or nonprofit organizations outside of the church. And so it's a challenge, though. It really is. So.
really challenging. And just being super transparent, we're even doing that as a global Food for the Hungry alliance. We had broken relationships in the early mid 2000s, and in the last 5 years, there's been this amazing reconciliation process that's happened. Now, I'm a part of this team of 10, meeting every other week, and we're looking at what does a new global structure look like for us to all come together. Because we were broken for years, and now everyone's back at the table, renewed energy, clear on vision, purpose, promise, mission going forward. But now it's all right. What does that global structure need to look like for us to be a thriving organization in 5, 10 plus years? Very much a part of that conversation is we're not doing this alone. So what other like-minded organizations do we need to align with in order to be thriving down the road? So yeah, I'm sure many are having that conversation right now.
They are. Yeah.
And that's my encouragement. I think we have to be having that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you aren't the first leader. So thank you for your transparency, because you aren't the first leader who has told me that exact same thing, that we have had broken relationships in our own, I don't know, what is it called? Fraternity, like our own
association, whatever. Yeah.
Yes, whatever it is.
Alliance.
We've had those broken relationships. And so it's fascinating to me to see what God is doing and what is happening in the charity world right now. It's not a coincidence that this had started before COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
It may have accelerated the fire, to be really honest, but
accelerated, and it's made it super challenging because we can't all come together. I'm on these calls with Korea and Japan, and it's hard. But we're also in this place where we know God has called us to this time right now, where we are all back at the table together, and it's only because of reconciling, and we're clear on where God is calling us as an organization. Now we got to build a structure that supports that vision He has for us.
So okay, here's a question. Personally, as a leader, is there anything that you have stopped doing during this season that you're like, I am not going back there, I'm not doing that? I know some people have said the travel thing, like, I used to travel 3 weeks out of the month, I am not doing that anymore. Is there anything that you have said?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's been digital first for us, thank goodness. And it's kind of the same things, I think, looking back. I felt we were in a good place to quickly adapt to the new way going forward. And a big part for me, and like I said, I'm grateful for the opportunity to see. I was seeing the value of decentralizing, but I wasn't totally willing to go there. So to fully trust staff, whether you're a millennial or whatever group you're in, we weren't really willing to take those steps yet, but we're seeing the value in it now, and we're seeing our team respond because they have a part in this, and they have a voice at the table, and they're seeing that the work continues and the impact that they're ultimately having at the field level. So I guess that was, afforded us a bit of time to do that through COVID over the last 4 or 5 months.
Well, and when you talk about your path to where you are, it's when I moved to Ontario, what someone said is you've had a very non-traditional path to this role. And I would say the same thing about you. And I would just say to people, like, this is a BC Gen X path. This is just, this is actually normal. This isn't too weird. But I think even that, it's funny how you can move from that non-traditional, like, we can do things in a whole bunch of different ways, to now I'm working in a ministry and this is the way it's always been done. So that can shift. We can change. It's like that. I can change if I have to.
Yeah, I can change if I have to. And, we, again, on the decentralizing part, we always sort of wanted the control at our head office, but pre-COVID, we started taking the steps of having regional representatives across the country. And now, looking back, so fortunate we made those decisions 18 to 24 months ago. We were better positioned. We were able to have more close contact and strengthening relationships with our donors and partners. And, it's those people that have also opened doors to collaboration with other agencies. So yeah, I guess a lot of it was in the works, and we probably ramped it up once kind of COVID hit. But I'm trying to think back, like I can't think of things that are absolutely not gonna do going forward. I'm grateful. Like I said, we practice open book management. Some of these other rhythms we already had in place, and those are paying dividends. We quickly jumped from a morning huddle in the boardroom, which 4 out of 5 days sort of didn't involve our regional reps. Well, now it's sort of even the playing field. So we're all on Zoom every morning at 8:15, even though a number of us are in the office. And it's really has, I think, brought our team together. So it's been really strengthening for us.
So good. Now, one of the things, and you mentioned this just briefly, but one of the unique things about Food for the Hungry is this business partnership idea. So not just partnering with church donors or churches, but also like, how do you connect with businesses? You're a ministry. How do you connect? Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So prior CEO to myself, Bernie Willick, had been a business owner, and he really helped us kind of shape a business partner strategy, very similar really to how we partner with a church. And once we got kind of a core group of just these energetic, small, medium kind of enterprise business owners, a lot of these folks haven't really felt valued in their church. They've been really just like things we've all been guilty of in the past. We come to them to, hey, would you write a check and support this program? Not really asking them to get involved personally, relationally. At the same time, these folks, men and women, are building these thriving businesses. This is their ministry, and they're looking at new creative ways to engage staff, clients, suppliers, and we've been able to find a way where we can kind of facilitate that relationship. So we encourage them and we connect them to walk with a community in a developing country, and then there's multiple levels to engage. We can adapt. We're small. We can work with you and find a model that's works for the business owner and their team. And it's been amazing. It's brought a lot of companies together that have actually formed alliances and done events together. But it's allowed them to participate. A number of them were already engaged in their local communities, and now they were all, trying to figure out, how do I get involved on the global piece? We're all trying to be global citizens to affect humanity around the world in some way. And so it's been a thriving thing for us really the last 3 to 4 years. That's one thing that's taken off more than anything for us. And we've got these passionate people that want to see sustainable change in their own community, but in communities around the world. And so, yeah, I can go on and on. We've got a lot of businesses with really cool stories. Some companies that have built their own charities actually under their own umbrella that will partner with us to, they want to affect change in education in one country or see health impacted in a region, and they can get involved. And we just set it up as really a plug and play for them to engage at whatever level they can. So it's been fun.
I love it because I'm one of those people who has been called to business for the church and to church for business. And it's hard. It's really, really hard because finding your fit. So could you tell us a story about one of those businesses and because you did this before you were CEO. Is that correct? You were working in that area?
Correct. That's right. Yeah. So I'll mention, there's an investment group in Edmonton. They wanted to, it was sort of the exact example I was referring to earlier. They wanted to impact education in one country. So they went about and basically interviewed 20 different Canadian organizations over a year, did a really deep due diligence. In the end, I'd been introduced to their owner, And we sort of presented this opportunity of communities that we're partnering in Guatemala. And child malnutrition is sort of the cross-cutting theme there. It's a major part of the programs that we do. But education is instrumental in that region and has huge needs, a lot of infrastructure needs, teacher training. Government hasn't been able to contribute as much into the remote regions as they'd like to. And so it seemed to be a great fit, not only in communities that Canada supports, but even our US office supports as well. So we've kind of built this partnership over 5 years where now they've got this model. As new clients come on, they take their first 18 months of revenue from those clients and put them into this fund that goes then to support either new school builds or rehabilitation and helping supplies set up in classrooms, and supports teacher training if latrines are needed, whatever. It's sort of the whole package. And as they grow their client base and their revenue base, the more they're able to do with us. So this is a partner that's looking, they're already looking 10, 15, 20 years out of having major impact and really affecting a large part of this country. So that'd be one of the kind of bigger partnership examples that's been super exciting. It's slow to develop. You got to figure out how to work well together. We had a lot to learn from a business like that when you're a charity, but we need to sharpen up the way we do our business operations as well. So, and they were new to the international development world and what sustainable community development meant, and how all these sectors need to come in and really it's got to be a holistic approach if you want to see sustainability. So they can affect change in one of those areas, and that's super exciting for them and motivates their team, motivates their clients, and it's been
so
really
good.
It's been exciting to do it together.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, this has been rich. This has been really good. We could talk forever, but I have two last questions for you. The first is, if someone wants to find out more information about you, Food for the Hungry, how do they find you?
fhcanada.org is our website. And then, FH Canada through any of our social channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a blog on our website as well. So there's multiple channels of engaging with our organization. Or just call us. Go to our website and phone our office, and you'll connect with someone for child sponsorship, or Carissa, who's a lead, our director of philanthropy, or call me. There's multiple ways to get in touch with us.
This is so good. So if there's a business leader listening and they're like, what do I do this year? This is a great option too. So you can be in touch.
And on our website, it gives examples of partnerships that are already happening. We have some businesses and churches that are listed, and what those relationships look like.
Perfect. Okay. So last question is there anything else you would say to your peers across the country as they just we're going into this next season? Everyone's a little tired. That's what I'm seeing. Everybody's a little tired. We're coming out of crisis mode into next, I'm not calling it new normal, but next normal, because it changes every day. What would you say to them?
I would say, and I'm guilty of this, super important to just keep those healthy rhythms going for personal life as well as work life. Whatever that work-life balance is, I don't know if that's possible, but it's just finding healthy rhythms that work for you and your family and you and your organization. So that would be one thing. The other thing is, don't go at this alone. We kind of talked about this earlier. I think it's super important as a leader, especially now. You need to have a group of peers around you. You've got to be learning and sharing and being vulnerable. And I've been fortunate. I did the Aero leadership journey about 4 years ago, and I've got a group of gentlemen that are also leaders, and we get together monthly, and that's been huge for me. and then connecting with other charity leaders. So that would be another encouragement, just to make sure you're not going at this alone during this time. And then, yeah, let's talk. I think there's, be a part of these CCRDA, CCIC, these other memberships. I think it's really important right now to be, part of the conversation of, we've got to find ways to collaborate and partner together. We'll do better then at coming alongside the Canadian Church with healthy poverty alleviation resources, supporting Canadian business. We've got to find new creative ways to be doing these things together. So that would be my encouragement. I think I'm fortunate to have a great team who's really outward looking and great at relationships, and they're building a lot of these things together. And I would encourage others to be doing the same.
So good. And I suspect people will feel like they found a friend today in you, Shawn Plummer. So people may start phoning you, just so you know.
That's fine.
This is good. This is very good. Well, I'm so glad you joined us today. Thank you. Thank you for this. And I am going to be tracking with what you and the team there, because I think I've heard rumblings of a podcast happening there too.
Oh,
so
there are rumblings, yeah.
There are rumblings. So things to follow up on. So glad to connect with you.
Thank you, Ellen. Good to be with you today.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Changemakers podcast, brought to you by Graf-Martin Integrated Marketing Solutions for Good. Graf-Martin is Canada's leading integrated marketing and communications agency for nonprofit organizations seeking to do more good. If you need an agile, full-service marketing agency to move your organization forward, we get it. Visit grafmartincom to learn more and schedule your free consultation so that you can do more good.